Hey, I swear if somebody hacked into HBO and leaked one of their episodes again, cause that sucks. What's up? And today I'm gonna do a review on the very new and the very famed TV show from HBO, Westworld. So, since True Detective is going downhill, assumably, let's come on, True Detective Season 3, come on! Okay, anyway, since True Detective Season 2 is kind of a flop, and Game of Thrones is coming to a close, HBO gotta make a new TV show to keep up. So Christopher Nolan's brother Jonathan Nolan and his wife created a TV show called Westworld, based on Michael Crichton's novel, Westworld. The concept is unbelievably confusing, so I'm gonna try my best to explain it. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, because all these stories, there's like a double meaning, and there's so many interpretations, there's so many symbolisms and metaphors, and it's very convoluted, but I'm trying my best to comprehend it. So basically, like, in the story level, in the future, we were going to build a theme park, an amusement park, or a world, Westworld, and that is basically set in the Wild West, and there are AI robots running that place, aka hosts, and we also have visitors going to that place, enjoying life in the Westworld, enjoying another life in another character. But in the deeper level, the story is also about these AI hosts, these robots, because they have artificial intelligence, like they were trying to be humans, so they were like searching for consciousness, and by searching for the consciousness, they have to go through a maze of different levels of I don't know, humanity. It's really deep. This show really digs into the roots of soul and life. What does it actually mean? And I really like it. Philosophical. I see that. And and yes, because of the success of Game of Thrones, they put a lot of like graphic violence, nudity, and swear words in the show. It's acceptable, okay? It's acceptable, but the explicitness isn't as good and as gritty as that of Game of Thrones. But don't worry, because the show has a solid cast. First, Anthony Hopkins is playing Dr. Ford, the big bad villain. And yes, he stole the show. Like in like Transformers, Anthony Hopkins was like phoning it in, and he doesn't really do it. He's just doing it for money. It may seem like, but in Westworld, Anthony Hopkins was actually committing to his role, and I really love to see that. And the guy who created Westworld in the story is Dr. Ford. Jeffrey Wright is playing Bernard, who is also a really nice doctor working for Dr. Ford. Evan Rachel Woods plays the host named Dolores, and Ed Harris plays a man in black. No name, man in black. I know his real name, but I'm not going to tell you, because that is for a spoiler alert. Yeah, another man in black. So here goes episode 1, the original. The premise is, like, when I was watching this episode, the premise was really new to me. It's really innovative, or should I say it's original. Okay, sorry about that. But nonetheless, you can tell by the shots and the scenes and the cinematography that the show is going to be a huge project with high quality. The characters were still pretty nonsensical to me when I was watching the episode, which is not really a bad thing, but the British dude who keeps dropping the F-bomb looks like he's some actor from Bones or The Mentalist or Criminal Minds, just one of those annoying roles. And Teddy, this character, just looks like a Disney prince. And some of the main characters keep dying and reviving because they are simply robots. So it doesn't really matter if they die, because they come back alive. I don't know. So another quick question came up to me when I was watching the episode, is that I want to root for the protagonists, right? But come on, they are just robots. Their feelings are programmed. It's actually hard to root for a robot character. But then again, they are artificial intelligence, so they are kind of similar to human. but they are also robots, so I want to root for them, but I don't know how, and that's real weird. And but there are also a lot of things that I like about the show in the first sight. The musical score composed by Raman Djawadi is amazing. You know, the title sequence is really good, and again, the concept is creative and the cast is solid. The scene where Dolores' dad picked up a photo of a woman in a city, that is a special scene where two different worlds cross, which also means that the show succeeds at creating multiple worlds in a story at the same time. So yeah, Westworld actually keeps a good balance between the reality and what's going on in the Westworld. It's like me dreaming and me in real life, and it's happening at the same time. You know, duality. And yeah, it's a really promising pilot episode, but it's still a very confusing and incomprehensible pilot episode. Moving on to episode 2, Chestnut. I'm beginning to think that we should be interested in Westworld instead of rooting for certain characters. New characters like William and Logan made appearances. They weren't hosts, but they visited the Westworld. William is a nice guy, while Logan is a bad guy, but they were friends at that time. And then I don't know why, but this episode centers a lot on a character called Maeve, a hooker with a British accent who works in a bar in Westworld, and she's also a host. Maeve saw visions of herself being chased by some native people, and that is a problem, apparently. Still very confusing. And Man in Black found a guy called Lawrence, did some bad things to him, and his daughter suddenly told Man in Black about the secret maze, so the Man in Black could reach the secret maze in Westworld. And by the time I was watching this episode, I really thought the maze was a real thing. Like there was a physical maze hidden, like in the core, like in the underground of Westworld or something. But the maze was actually a metaphor for like going towards humanity and consciousness. Oh, wow. It's really complicated. And Dr. Ford was talking to some random kid somewhere in the desert, and then Bernard continued to talk to Dolores, and Dolores and Teddy isn't the main focus of the episode. So yes, I was still very confused. In short, I did get a fuzzy idea of what the story is trying to tell, but when I was watching this episode, I still couldn't see any connections between any of these random storylines without being given any context. Then it's episode 3, The Stray. You know, I think like by the time I was watching this episode, I thought I was getting a bit closer to having an idea on what the hell's going on, because I really could not figure out the full picture. You know how confusing the story was. So Dolores continued to have visions, and she heard voices. Bernard and she built a friendly relationship, but Dolores was just a robot, so I don't really know what's the point. I didn't really know what's the point. Now I know. And then Elsie and the guy who's played by Luke Hemsworth went into Westworld and tried to save a host, but the host did weird things. And wow, it's even stranger and more ridiculous when a bad guy showed up and killed another guy. That guy's friend was running away, and William killed the bad guy, and the guy's friend was like, nice shot, because shooting and dying seems like a common thing. William, Logan, and Maeve didn't make much appearances, and the English guy isn't in this episode. Ted kept dying and reviving, and things were still very complicated and confusing. On episode 4, Dissonance Theory, things get a little bit more trippy and mysterious, which somehow reminds me of Mr. Robot. This show really tries so hard to be everything. Mr. Robot, Game of Thrones, and The Wire, and many other shows all at the same time. And the show also has some really cheesy and corny moments where it forces its character to do something gory or sexy or just simply swear. Like, at least that's how I felt when I was watching this episode, because I feel like some of the explicitness is kind of forced, and that is not that good. But I like the direction that the show is going. The whole point of the show is confusing, but that's actually the point at the same time. At least that's what it feels like. As far as the show goes, only Maeve's storyline is kind of interesting in that point. The whole Wild plotline is just a story created by Dr. Ford, for all I know, and the secret maze sounded like something not in Westworld, but then it is in Westworld. I have no idea. Next up is episode 5, Contrapasso, which is an intricate little episode that starts to hook me into the story. Lots of different characters from different storylines meet up, and that's one of the more interesting things about this episode. My phone is ringing. Not my phone, my house, my apartment phone, whatever. Just like Game of Thrones, the show really relies on these small meetup scenes and all the explicit stuffs to hook their fans. But I feel like the dirtiness of this show doesn't work as well as those in other shows. Excessive F-bombs, forced sex scenes, and violence just makes the show a little bit awkward in my opinion, so I'm kinda mixed, like my feelings kind of mixed for the episode, but so far so good. We see William and Dolores doing some action, and it's fun and intriguing. Over to episode 6, The Adversary. Oh my gosh, I actually forgot to write a review for this episode after I watched it. Until a week later, I realized that it's missing, so I wrote the review then. Anyways, there's not much to say in this episode other than it's a decent, fine little episode. Most weird anomalies were detected everywhere. Elsie and Bernard were investigating it. And then Man in Black and Teddy found some soldiers, tried to make it through. The new characters of Charlotte is introduced, and she will be an interesting character. She's played by Tessa Thompson, right? Charlotte? Is it her? I forgot. Anyway, what's best about this episode is the storyline for Maeve and Felix, which is one of the workers for the Delos company who created Westworld. And Maeve began to learn more about her reality and her nature and the nature of reality, of her reality, and the episode ended on a high note when the grandiose marching score accompanies the end credits, so I'm loving it. Next is episode 7, Trompe l'oeil, making the fake look real. I really wished I recorded my reaction for this episode, because oh my gosh, the ending of the episode, like, first of all, Maeve continued to be a strong woman who's trying to break the game, the rules, to break the game rules. I like the direction the show's going with her character. She could be a new protagonist, who knows? Second, Dolores and William had some adventurous action sequences that are entertaining. It's fairly enjoyable. Now for the ending, so I'm giving it spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert.
I knew there's a plot twist coming, I knew it, but I didn't know what's the twist. But I saw the ratings for the episode, and I'm like, there's gonna be a plot twist, man. There's gonna be a plot twist. So, bam! And there's actually a plot twist at the end. And man, that's, wow. Seriously, I thought about what would the plot twist be. If Westworld has both hosts and humans, then so can the real world and the show. But the problem is, who? So, who in the real world can potentially actually be a host? So yeah, I had a small tinkling of predictions of what the plot twist might be. But at the very end, Bernard brought Teresa into Dr. Ford's secret lair, and Bernard saw a blueprint of himself as a host. And then Teresa asked what it is, and he said, "It doesn't look like anything to me." And then Dr. Ford showed up and shut down Bernard, and Bernard was a host. Are you kidding me? My teeth. Ow. But yeah, I was mind blown. Like, it doesn't look like anything to me. Like, at that point, I was already shocked that Because this line is supposed to be a thing that host says when they are looking at something that they don't know. Wow, are you kidding me? Bernard was actually the person I root for the most in the entire show, and he's actually not even a person. So it's such a heartbreaking plot twist. Even more insane when Dr. Ford ordered Bernard to kill Teresa, and he actually did it. The show is showing us how manipulative and evil Dr. Ford is. And damn, William and Dolores must defeat Dr. Ford. And that is what I thought at the end of watching the episode. Moving on to episode 8, Trace Decay. It's weird pronouncing words with this set of braces. Oh my gosh. Man in Black encountered some problems while Maeve became super smart and tried to escape Westworld. The actress for Maeve, Tandy Newton, is actually pretty good. Maeve's plotline is going to be an interesting direction, and it's fairly enjoyable. Once again, I said that. Why did I say that? Ed Harris is always good at playing the bad guy, and Anthony Hopkins is great at playing the bad guy. What am I saying? There's not much to say other than it's a decent episode, I guess. Yeah, that's what I wrote. The story progresses on to episode 9, The Well-Tempered Clavier, which is another episode that exceeded my expectations and ended up as one of the best Westworld episodes I had watched so far. Not one of the best, simply the best. It's simply the best. A lot of surprises and twists, and a lot of amazing and entertaining scenes, and yes! Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert.
First of all, Man in Black and Charlotte's sudden encounter is weird enough, but Man in Black finding Dolores again is something ominous. The Maeve storyline didn't progress that much, and she was always doing crazy things and trying to break out of Westworld. William did a smart move and took control of Logan after Logan threatened to kill Dolores, but yeah, William, I think he's turning into a bad guy. But what really shocked me is the ending scene. They gave us this Mr. Robot-esque kind of scene for Dolores where we start to question if she's having visions or if she's hallucinating or whatever. And the story kept jumping from Dolores to Bernard. While Dolores was following a voice in her head, a voice of Arnold, Bernard forced Dr. Ford to unlock his memories. Damn, Bernard's memories were shown in such an abstract and weird way. Every scene had a strange, surrealistic transition. And then when Dolores was face to face with Android, Bernard realized that he was Arnold. Bernard was Arnold. And Dolores was facing Arnold, and that is a pretty great twist. But Bernard was actually more like a host that is based off of Arnold, but he's also Arnold at the same time. It's kind of confusing. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But yeah, that is an insane twist. And then Dolores said that she killed Arnold. And that is also a really nice twist, although I already know about that. But then Dr. Ford killed Bernard suddenly by forcing him to kill himself with a gun. And that was shocking. And I still root for Bernard. I really hope that he would retrieve and remember everything. At the very end, it's episode 10, The Bicameral Mind, scoring 9.8 on IMDb on the first, month. Wow, it's getting way more complicated, and the show also gave us a lot of clues for what happened, but also answers for what had happened. This episode flowed very smoothly because apparently all of the storylines are connected to each other after all. The only scenes that felt bumpy were the Maeve scenes, but other than that, this episode really surprised me on how good it is, how mind-bending it is, how both immensely emotional and emotionally immense it is. I'm giving a spoiler alert. Yay!
Spoiler alert.
First of all, fan theory confirmed. Man in Black is the older version of William. So now we understand why did Man in Black find Lawrence on episode 3, because he's actually finding him back, although Lawrence does not have any memory of getting along with William, or the old William, aka Man in Black. So the first half of the 1.5 hour long finale is basically us going through Dolores' mind and realizing that Dolores was experiencing 2 timelines at the same time. And then there's this maze thing, which is just a metaphor. Don't expect a real maze in the middle of the park. You'll be silly. But it's basically Arnold trying to let the hosts achieve consciousness and actually turn them into human beings. That's crazy. And then we have Maeve setting Hector and the other girls free, almost bringing down the entire company by killing humans. I'm glad that they didn't kill Felix, but again, Bernard checked. Maeve trying to escape is just a part of a bigger plan. Oh shit. Like the last scene, I love the Michelangelo reference, and I love how the last scene played out. Dolores killed a lot of people and she thought she's acting on her free will, but she's still a host, so it's probably an even bigger plan. Like what Dolores was doing, like Dolores thought that what she's doing is based upon her free will, like she actually made the choice, but I think that what she's doing is completely programmed and it's all part of a bigger scheme set by Dr. Ford. Yeah, and she's under Dr. Ford's control. Oh my gosh. And then there's the scene where Ted and Dolores like reunited and they were on a beach and like Dolores was stabbed and she was dying and Ted was holding her, and then it gets really emotional and suddenly it stopped and then the lights came out and then all the humans just gathered around and Dr. Ford was there, like, this is our new narrative, this is our new scene. So it's really fourth wall breaking, because I was really into that scene, like, into that moment, and then suddenly it's all fake. And then I realized that, yeah, that's fake. Wait, what? Like, it was so mind conflicting. Wow. It's beautiful. It's beautifully mind conflicting. And then there's this last scene where Dolores revived, and then Dolores talked to Arnold or Bernard, and Dolores wanted to kill Dr. Ford. So Dr. Ford was like speaking in front of a lot of humans, and Dolores just pulled out the gun and bang, and then bang, Dr. Ford just his head just blew up. But I have a theory that that wasn't actually Dr. Ford, but Dr. Ford's host. I don't know. Let's see what Westworld Season 2 brings us. But overall, at the end, this debut season of Jonathan Nolan's adaptation of Michael Crichton's Westworld is pretty nice. The first half is really confusing and slow, and the violence and the sex scenes were all sloppy and unnatural, but the second half proved me wrong with its crazy plot twists and emotional scenes. This new style of television is beginning to form, not just one, but 2 worlds in the show, the Westworld and the real world. I see a lot of inspirations from Game of Thrones, Mr. Robot, and a lot of other sci-fi TV shows and movies. The production design is pretty damn amazing, but what's most impressive is the musical score by Ramin Djawadi. The best pieces of music are notably the main theme, Sweetwater, Freeze All Motor Functions, The World, This World, etc. He also used a couple of Radiohead songs, because why not? Performance by Anthony Hopkins and Jeffrey Wright are brilliant. Evan Rachel Wood's performance is also decent. The story really took a great turn in the second half, oh boy, and it's ultimately a show that makes you think and reflect on humanity and the nature of reality, and it also makes you question, like, the nature of consciousness, and do I even need a life in order to have a soul? Philosophical questions. But yeah, the worst is episode 2, Chestnut, and the best is episode 10, the Bicameral Mind. Damn. The first half deserves a 7, but the second half deserves pretty much a 10. I'm giving Westworld Season 1 an 8 to a 9 out of 10. So, have you watched Westworld Season 1 from 1 to 10? How much would you rate it? Like if you like it, and subscribe if you want more. My teeth hurts.